The grand halls of Virelia's royal palace gleamed under the soft light of the twin suns. Towering walls of crystal reflected delicate rainbows across the floor, and intricate carvings depicted the history of the planet's royal line. Every step echoed in the enormous chamber, reminding all who entered that this place was home to power, tradition, and rigid expectations. Princess Leora, heir to the Virelian throne, sat quietly on her throne, a seat specially designed to support her disabled body. She was blind from birth and her legs could not support her fully, requiring a lightweight hover chair to move with ease. Despite her disabilities, her presence was calm, dignified, and commanding. Today, however, the atmosphere was tense. The chamber was filled with Virelian nobles, diplomats, and military leaders. They had gathered for the bonding ceremony, a sacred tradition in which the princess was meant to form official bonds with advisors, allies, and potential partners. Bonding was more than a formality. It was a demonstration of loyalty, trust, and shared responsibility. Every leader in the room expected this day to reveal the future of the kingdom, but there was unease. Whispers floated through the air like invisible currents, carrying words of doubt and judgment. Many nobles had already decided that Leora was unfit to lead, not because of her mind, but because of her body and blindness. In Virelian society, perfection of body and mind was admired. Weakness was feared. As the first nobles stepped forward to approach her one after another, they paused, stared, and then turned away. Some muttered excuses about other duties or more suitable partners. Others gave small bows but did not extend their hands to bond. Leora's heart, though strong, felt the weight of their rejection. The princess remained composed, her hands resting gently on the arms of her hover chair. She could sense the hesitation, the fear, the judgment. She had felt it all her life, yet it stung every time she faced it. She had learned to hide disappointment behind a calm mask, but inside, a storm of emotions raged. From a corner of the chamber, Captain Ethan Hart, a human envoy from Earth, watched the unfolding scene with growing curiosity. Humans had arrived on Virelia only a few months ago as part of an interstellar alliance mission. Ethan had trained as a space explorer, diplomat, and strategist. He was used to strict protocols, but nothing had prepared him for the rigid, almost cruel etiquette of Virelian society. Ethan's green eyes scanned the faces of the nobles. He noticed the subtle ways they avoided Leora's gaze, how they shifted their weight nervously when approaching her, how they whispered to each other as if she were invisible. He clenched his fists under his jacket. "They don't understand," he muttered quietly to himself. "They don't see what she can do. They only see what she cannot." Leora sensed his presence, not visually, but as a calm, steady energy in the room. Humans were rare on Virelia, and their minds operated differently from the aliens. Most humans did not judge so quickly. This one, she realized, did not radiate fear or doubt. Finally, the chamber quieted as the last Virelian noble refused to step forward. A heavy silence filled the hall. The presiding elder, a tall figure with silver-plated wings, cleared his throat. "Princess Leora," he said in a voice both formal and disapproving, "it seems that no bond has been offered today. This is unprecedented." Leora remained silent for a moment, her mind processing the familiar sting of isolation. Then she spoke, her voice calm but steady, carrying through the hall. "I expected hesitation," she said softly, "but today is not about fear. Today is about choice. If no one else sees my strength, perhaps another will." Ethan's pulse quickened. He had studied diplomacy extensively, and he knew the risks. Humans were not part of Virelian culture. To step forward would be a bold and controversial move. Yet something inside him urged him on. He rose from his seat and walked toward the throne, his steps deliberate and confident. The chamber erupted in whispers, some shocked, others incredulous. A human, a foreigner, a species far less advanced than their own, had dared to approach the princess. Several nobles gasped and muttered warnings, but Ethan ignored them. When he reached Leora, he stopped and bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect learned from countless diplomatic briefings. Then he extended his hand. "Princess Leora," he said, his voice calm but firm, "I would be honored to bond with you." The hall fell into stunned silence. Some nobles exchanged worried glances. Bonding with a human was unheard of, and now a human dared to step forward when all others had refused. Leora studied him, not with her eyes, but with her mind. She sensed honesty, courage, and an unusual empathy radiating from him. In that moment, she made a decision. She reached out, touching his hand gently. Energy, warm, subtle, and strange, passed between them. Humans did not bond the same way Varelians did, but Ethan's willingness, his trust, and his openness formed a connection unlike any Lorelian had ever experienced. Then let it be so, she said quietly. You shall be my bond, human. The room erupted in murmurs, some outraged, others skeptical. The elder cleared his throat again, his wings rustling nervously. This is highly irregular, he said. A human cannot perform a proper bond. It violates tradition. Ethan shook his head, smiling faintly. I may not follow your traditions exactly, but I understand loyalty, trust, and strategy. I can offer her what you all refuse to see. The princess allowed a small smile to form. For the first time in many cycles, she felt hope. Someone had not judged her by her disabilities. Someone had seen her mind, her courage, her potential. The whispers continued, but their sting could not reach her now. She had chosen, and in her heart, she knew she had chosen wisely. Over the next hour, Ethan learned the basics of the bond. Varelian bonds involved sharing thoughts, emotions, and perceptions, a process that strengthened understanding between partners. Leora could sense Ethan's initial awkwardness, the strangeness of connecting to a mind so different from her own, but she felt no fear, only a growing sense of mutual respect. You think too much about what others will say, she told him softly, sensing his hesitation. Trust yourself, trust me. That is all that matters, Ethan nodded. I've never met anyone like you, Princess. You're remarkable. Leora smiled again, a rare expression that reached her eyes even though they could not see. And you are brave, human. That is a rare gift here. Meanwhile, the nobles in the chamber continued to observe. Some whispered among themselves, debating whether the princess's choice would destabilize their rigid hierarchy. Others secretly felt a spark of curiosity. Perhaps the human could bring something new to their world. Outside the palace, the twin suns began to set, casting long golden beams across the city of Varelia. The palace gardens glowed in a soft amber, reflecting off crystal fountains and iridescent flowers. For Leora and Ethan, it was a moment of quiet triumph. A bond had been formed not from obligation or expectation, but from choice, trust, and courage. As they left the throne room together, moving slowly through the grand corridors, Leora felt a strange sense of freedom. The world could reject her, the nobles could doubt her, but she had found an ally, a human who saw her not as a disabled princess, but as a leader, a strategist, and a person capable of change. Ethan, too, felt a new sense of purpose. He had crossed galaxies, faced unknown dangers, and navigated alien politics, but nothing mattered as much as this bond. Together, he and Leora could face whatever challenges lay ahead. And he knew that despite the prejudices of an entire society, they had the potential to change the course of Varelia's future. In that moment, amidst the whispers, doubts, and tension of 1,000 noble eyes, one simple truth became clear. Courage and understanding can defy even the harshest judgment, and true strength lies in seeing beyond appearances. The first part of their story had begun, and though the path ahead would be full of trials, danger, and intrigue, Leora and Ethan were ready. Together they would prove that differences could be a source of power, and that sometimes it only takes one human to see the value in someone everyone else has refused. The palace gardens were quiet in the early morning, bathed in soft sunlight. Birds with shimmering feathers flitted from tree to tree, singing songs that echoed gently across the marble pathways. Leora moved slowly along the path in her hover chair, her hands resting lightly on the controls. Her mind was alert, observing the world in ways the Varelians often overlooked. Ethan walked beside her, careful to match her pace. Humans were stronger physically, able to move quickly and handle difficult terrain. But here he had to slow down, to adapt. Leora noticed his attention, his willingness to learn her pace, and she felt a growing respect for him. He was patient, which was rare in both humans and Varelians alike. Ethan, she said softly, you must understand that life for me is not the same as it is for others. I experience the world differently. My senses, my perception of people, everything is through more than sight. You will have to trust me if you are to bond fully. Ethan nodded, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. I'm listening, Princess. Tell me what I need to know. Leora paused, sensing his sincerity. Varelians often rely on what we see. Sight guides our judgment, our assumptions. But I sense character in ways others do not. I feel hesitation, fear, courage, honesty, and lies. You must learn to trust those senses, even if they are not visible to you." Ethan frowned thoughtfully. Humans were trained to observe and analyze, but this was different. It required intuition, something his education had never fully taught him. Yet he felt a spark of excitement. If he could understand Leora, the bond could become something extraordinary. Their first lesson was simple: navigating the palace without relying on sight. Leora guided Ethan through corridors, telling him which vibrations in the floor indicated steps, which sounds hinted at a nearby presence, and how subtle shifts in air currents could reveal hidden passages. "Humans depend too much on sight," she explained. "You miss what is obvious to other senses. Listen, feel, learn." Ethan followed her instructions carefully. At first, he stumbled, brushing against walls and nearly tripping over rugs. Leora's hover chair hummed softly as she paused beside him. "Concentrate," she said. "The world speaks to you if you listen." Hours passed. Ethan's human mind, trained for observation and analysis, began to adapt. He noticed patterns in sound, subtle changes in air movement, and even vibrations from the hover chair that told him the angle of the floors. He began to move more confidently, guided by Leora's unique perception. The lessons were not only practical. Leora also taught him about people. "Understanding someone is more than seeing their face or reading their words," she said one afternoon. "You must sense their intentions, their emotions. The body speaks even when the mind hides." Ethan practiced diligently. In the palace dining hall, he would guess what a noble felt, based on the rhythm of their footsteps, the tone of their voice, or the way they placed their utensils. Leora smiled quietly each time he succeeded. "You're learning fast," she said. "Faster than I expected." Their training was interrupted one evening when a group of nobles approached. They had overheard whispers about the human-princess bond and were curious and suspicious about its nature. One elder, tall with wings shimmering silver, stepped forward. "Princess Leora, it is highly irregular to bond with a human. Our traditions are clear. This alliance may bring dishonor." Leora's hands rested calmly on the arms of her hover chair. "Disagreement is not dishonor," she said. "Refusal to see truth is dishonor. If you only judge by appearances, you will miss what is important." Ethan added quietly, "I may not be Varelian, but I see her clearly. I trust her judgment, and I will follow her guidance. That is all that matters." The nobles exchanged uncertain glances. Some muttered among themselves, clearly uncomfortable with a human asserting such confidence. Leora ignored them, sensing their fear rather than their anger. Fear of change, fear of what they could not understand. Days turned into weeks. The bond between human and princess grew stronger. They practiced strategy sessions, discussing scenarios of defense, diplomacy, and exploration. Leora's mind worked differently from any human Ethan had met. She could anticipate moves in battle, predict reactions from diplomats, and see opportunities where others saw only risk. One afternoon, Leora led Ethan to the royal archives, a vast hall filled with glowing scrolls, holographic records, and histories of the kingdom. She moved her hand over a console, summoning a map of Varelia's surrounding space. "Our neighboring systems are unstable," she explained. "Factions compete for resources, alliances shift constantly. The Council fears conflict, but their strategies are cautious and predictable. You and I, we can think differently." Ethan studied the map. Humans had learned to improvise, to adapt quickly to unexpected situations. Combined with Leora's foresight and intuition, they could develop strategies far beyond what the Council expected. "I see what you mean," he said. "If we plan carefully, we can outmaneuver threats before they even reach our borders." Leora smiled. "Exactly. But it will require trust. You must trust my judgment even when it seems unusual, and I must trust yours even when it seems risky." They spent hours analyzing scenarios, their ideas growing bolder with each discussion. Ethan suggested unconventional tactics based on human experience, diversions, small agile teams, and use of terrain. Leora adapted these concepts to Varelian technology, combining human creativity with alien sophistication. Through this, they discovered a unique strength in their partnership. Varelians, accustomed to rigid thinking, often underestimated the power of improvisation. Humans, meanwhile, lacked access to Varelian technology and knowledge. Together, they were unstoppable, a combination of intuition, adaptability, and foresight. However, not everyone in the palace approved. Whispers of rebellion and dissent continued among the nobles. Some plotted to discredit the princess, hoping to prove that her bond with a human was a mistake. Leora sensed these plots as she always sensed hidden intentions. One evening, as the twin suns set and cast long shadows across the palace gardens, Leora spoke to Ethan quietly. "They will not accept us easily. They fear what they do not understand. But we must continue. We cannot allow fear to guide us." Ethan nodded. "We'll show them that strength comes from more than tradition, that intelligence, courage, and trust can overcome prejudice." Leora reached out, resting her hand lightly on his. "You are brave, human, and together, we will face whatever comes." Their bond deepened not only through training but through trust and understanding. Ethan learned to anticipate Leora's needs, to move in ways that complemented her strengths rather than compensating for her weaknesses. Leora learned to rely on Ethan's creativity and adaptability, understanding that his perspective brought a new kind of insight to her life and her kingdom. Weeks later, they were called to a council meeting, convened to discuss a growing threat on the borders of Virelia. Rumors of rogue fleets and insurgent activity had reached the palace, and the nobles expected cautious deliberation. Ethan and Leora entered the council chamber together. The room fell silent as the nobles regarded the human with suspicion. Many whispered about the unusual alliance, questioning its wisdom. The council leader, an imposing figure with golden wings, spoke first. "Princess Leora, you have bonded with a human. How can we trust that your decisions will protect Virelia?" Leora's voice was steady, calm, and confident. "Because trust is not given based on species, appearances, or tradition. It is earned through understanding, loyalty, and courage. Ethan has proven his commitment to me, and together we have studied and prepared. Our strategies are sound," Ethan added. "I may be human, but I understand her vision. I understand the threats we face. We have prepared plans that combine your strengths with ours. Virelia will be safer for it," the council murmured uneasily. Some nobles still doubted, but others leaned forward, curiosity replacing doubt. It was unusual, yes, but perhaps it was also innovative. Perhaps the bond between human and princess could bring solutions they had never imagined. As they left the council chamber, Leora turned to Ethan. "Tomorrow, we begin testing our strategies. Not in theory, but in practice. If we succeed, they will see. If we fail, we will learn and adapt. That is the human way, is it not?" Ethan smiled. "Yes. And together we will show them a new way to see strength." The sun set behind the palace, casting the sky in shades of gold and violet. For Leora, it was a symbol of hope. For Ethan, it was a promise of adventure, challenge, and purpose. And for both, it was the beginning of a journey that would test courage, intelligence, and the bond that had formed between a blind princess and a human who refused to see her as anything less than extraordinary. In that quiet moment, amidst the whispering winds of Virelia's palace gardens, one truth became clear. Differences are not weaknesses. They are strengths waiting to be discovered. And together they would uncover them all. The calm of Virelia's twin suns was shattered by the sudden roar of alarms echoing through the palace. Red lights flashed across the corridors, and holographic displays sprang to life, showing dozens of rogue warships approaching from the outer system. Their intentions were clear. They sought to challenge the kingdom's authority and seize control of key trade routes. Princess Leora felt a familiar tension rise in her chest, but she did not panic. Her mind raced, sensing patterns in the ship's formations, predicting possible maneuvers. Her disability did not limit her insight. If anything, it sharpened it. She could anticipate threats in ways others often overlooked. Ethan, standing beside her hover chair, observed the fleet on the holographic map. "They're moving fast. The council will want to respond with the standard defensive formations. But it could take hours to mobilize fully," he said. "We might be too late if we wait." Leora's voice was calm but firm. "Then we will act before they reach us. We cannot rely solely on tradition. We must use strategy, surprise, and our understanding of both human and Virelian tactics." The council chamber filled quickly with generals and advisors. Most of them were skeptical, some outright dismissive of her ideas. "Princess," one general said, his wings quivering with irritation, "this is highly irregular. A direct strike could be dangerous. We must follow standard procedure." Leora's hands rested lightly on her hoverchair controls. Standard procedure will not save us. We must be adaptable. Those who anticipate their enemies' moves will survive. Those who wait will fail. Ethan leaned closer to her, his voice low. I trust you. Let me lead a strike team with you. We can intercept before the main fleet arrives. The generals exchanged uneasy glances. Leading a small strike team without full army support was considered reckless. But the princess's calm confidence combined with the humans' boldness forced them to pause. Leora turned to the nearest general. You will coordinate the main defenses and protect the cities. Ethan and I will intercept the fleet. We need speed, precision, and adaptability. If we succeed, the rest of the kingdom will be safe. If we fail, we learn and adapt quickly. That is the way forward. After a tense moment, the generals nodded, unwilling but forced to follow her command within minutes. Ethan and a small group of elite pilots were aboard fast-strike Varelian cruisers. Leora joined them in her hoverchair, fitted with a specially designed command module that allowed her to control navigation, communication, and tactical systems with precision. The outer system was quiet at first, the blackness of space stretching endlessly. Then the rogue fleet appeared. Dark shapes moving in formation, weapons primed. Leora's sensors detected weak points, gaps in their formation and variations in their energy signatures. She pointed them out to Ethan. Here, she said, 2 ships are slightly slower. If we take them first, the rest will hesitate. Disruption will create confusion. Ethan nodded, gripping the controls. We'll strike fast, hit hard, and disappear before they can respond. Human tactics meet Varelian technology. The small strike team moved quickly, their ships weaving through asteroid fields and using shadowed regions of space to remain undetected. Leora's precise instructions guided them, anticipating the enemy's every move. The rogue fleet was powerful but disorganized in ways the Council had not noticed. Ethan led the first attack. They targeted the slower ships, disabling weapon systems with precise blasts. Explosions rippled through space, illuminating the darkness in brief flashes. The rogue fleet faltered, confused by the unexpected assault. Good, Leora said calmly. Now move to the right flank. Use the asteroid cluster to shield our approach. They will not expect us there. Ethan adjusted their trajectory, trusting Leora's judgment. They emerged behind enemy lines, striking at the command ships. The rogue fleet's leader attempted a counterattack, but Leora had already predicted the move. She guided the team to intercept, using their combined agility and speed to neutralize the threat. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes to the humans and Varelians aboard the strike team. Each movement, each command, each decision was a dance of intuition and strategy. Leora's unique perspective, combined with Ethan's human ingenuity, created a synergy that no other Varelian strategy could match. Back at the palace, the generals monitored the battle, astonished by the success of such a small team. They had expected disaster, yet the reports showed precise strikes, minimal losses, and growing confusion among the rogue fleet. One general whispered to another, How is this possible? They should not be able to coordinate like this. The other shook his head, eyes wide. The princess, and that human, it's unlike anything we have seen. In space, the final confrontation approached. The rogue fleet, now desperate, attempted to regroup and launch a massive assault on the capital. Leora's senses picked up the subtle shifts in their energy signatures. They are panicking, she said. Use it, split their forces. Focus on the energy cores first. Disable them and the rest will retreat. Ethan executed her instructions flawlessly. Ships darted through space, disabling core systems, avoiding retaliatory fire and creating chaos within the enemy ranks. The rogue commander's frustration grew, but no strategy could match the precision and foresight of the bond between human and princess. Finally, the remaining enemy ships attempted to flee. Leora detected their trajectory and guided Ethan to intercept. One by one, the rogue vessels were captured or disabled. The fleet, once threatening the kingdom, was neutralized without catastrophic damage. The strike team returned to the palace, greeted by cheers from the palace guards and the astonished council. Leora's hoverchair hovered smoothly through the grand halls, her calm demeanor unchanged despite the intensity of the battle. Ethan exhaled, leaning back in his seat. We did it, he said, still amazed at the efficiency of their teamwork. I didn't think it would work so smoothly. Leora smiled faintly. Caution and patience matter, but so does understanding. We knew their weaknesses because we saw them differently. That is the value of perspective. The council reconvened to assess the aftermath. Generals reported minimal losses, and intelligence indicated that the rogue faction had been thoroughly disrupted. The chamber, once filled with doubt, now buzzed with cautious admiration. One elder spoke, wings trembling slightly. "Princess Leora, your tactics, they were unconventional, yes, but highly effective. And this human—" He paused, searching for words. He is unlike any ally we have seen." Leora remained calm. "He is my bond, yes. And together we acted not out of recklessness, but because we adapted to the situation. The strength of a leader is not measured only by following tradition, but by recognizing opportunities and acting decisively." Ethan's hand brushed against hers briefly. It was a gesture of solidarity, of mutual respect. The council watched silently, some still skeptical, but none could deny the success of their actions. As night fell over the twin suns, the palace gardens glowed under soft lights. Leora and Ethan walked slowly through the paths, reflecting on the battle. "You were incredible," Ethan said softly. "I never imagined I could work with someone in this way. Your intuition, it's beyond anything I've seen." Leora's expression remained gentle. "And your creativity, your willingness to act without fear. That is rare in any world. We complemented each other. That is why we succeeded." They paused beside a fountain, the water sparkling in the soft light. Leora reached out, feeling the vibrations and subtle movements in the air. "This was only the beginning," she said. "Threats will come again, but we have learned that together we can face them." Ethan nodded. "Then we'll keep learning, keep adapting, and face whatever comes next. Together." The twin moons rose over the horizon, casting a silver glow across the palace. For Leora, it was a symbol of resilience and hope. For Ethan, it was a promise of adventure and purpose. And for both, it was proof that differences, when embraced, could create strength beyond imagination. As the palace slept, the first seeds of change were planted. The kingdom, once rigid and skeptical, had witnessed the power of unconventional thinking and the bond between human and princess. It would take time, but Leora and Ethan had begun to show that courage, trust, and understanding could overcome even the most entrenched doubts. The first crisis was over, but the journey was far from complete. New challenges, new dangers, and new opportunities awaited, and together they would meet them, proving that strength comes not from perfection but from trust, partnership, and the courage to see beyond appearances. The palace was quieter now, but a new tension filled the air. The victory against the rogue fleet had shifted the balance of opinion within the council. Generals who had once doubted Leora now regarded her with curiosity, if not cautious respect. Whispers of her and Ethan's success traveled through the halls, reaching even the most skeptical nobles. Princess Leora moved through the palace gardens with her usual calm demeanor, her hover chair gliding over the marble paths. Ethan walked beside her, carrying reports from the latest patrols and intelligence. Their bond had grown stronger since the battle, each relying on the other's instincts and knowledge. "We've proven ourselves once," Leora said softly, "but proof is never permanent. The council will watch every move, waiting for a mistake. We must show consistency, wisdom, and strength." Ethan nodded. "I understand, and I will stand by you, every step of the way." Word reached the council that several minor factions within Virelia were considering pledges of loyalty to the princess. Some nobles, inspired by the courage and innovation she had displayed, were beginning to reconsider their stance. Others, still skeptical, remained distant, unwilling to admit that their assumptions had been wrong. The first to approach Leora formally was Lady Virel, a respected advisor known for her sharp mind and political influence. She approached the princess cautiously, her wings folded neatly behind her back. "Princess Leora," Lady Virel began, "I must admit, your tactics and decisions during the recent crisis were impressive. I would be honored to bond with you and lend my counsel." Leora's hover chair paused slightly. This was the first formal request from a council member since Ethan had stepped forward. She studied Lady Virel carefully, sensing honesty and a genuine desire to support the kingdom. "You will have my trust," Leora said calmly, "but understand that trust must be earned through loyalty and action, not appearances." Lady Virel bowed deeply. "I understand, Princess, and I will prove myself worthy." The council slowly began to shift. One by one, more nobles approached, cautiously offering bonds and pledges of support. Leora accepted only those whose intentions were sincere, testing their loyalty through discussions, observation, and subtle challenges. Her keen perception allowed her to detect deception or hesitation quickly. Ethan observed quietly, impressed by Leora's patience and judgment. "You've gained more in a few weeks than most leaders achieve in a lifetime," he said softly. Leora smiled faintly. The foundation was always there. They just needed a reason to see beyond tradition. That is why we move carefully, steadily. Influence is built, not demanded. Meanwhile, tension still simmered beneath the surface. A faction of conservative nobles plotted quietly, determined to undermine her and discredit the human bond. They whispered of alien superiority and human foolishness, warning that reliance on a foreign species was dangerous. Leora sensed their intentions during a council session. The room was filled with discussions about resource management, fleet expansion, and diplomatic alliances. Most nobles spoke confidently, but their words were laced with doubt and fear. Ethan leaned close to her, whispering, "They're planning something, aren't they?" Leora nodded subtly. "Yes, but we know them better than they know us. That knowledge will be our advantage." Over the next days, Leora and Ethan worked tirelessly, blending human and Varelian strategies. They reorganized patrols, optimized resource distribution, and strengthened communication networks. Their methods were unconventional but highly effective, drawing attention and admiration from the general populace. Citizens began to take notice. Word of the princess who saw beyond disability and the human who supported her spread across Varelia. Many were inspired by their courage and innovation. Merchants, soldiers, and scholars alike spoke of the bond between Leora and Ethan as a symbol of hope. One evening, during a quiet walk through the palace gardens, Leora spoke to Ethan. "Do you see the change?" she asked. "The people are beginning to believe, even if the council hesitates. Influence does not always come from power. It comes from action, integrity, and vision." Ethan nodded, watching the shimmering fountains and the soft light of the twin moons. "It's incredible. You've inspired so many, and not because of what you lack, but because of who you are." The next challenge came in the form of a diplomatic visit from the Xyrillian Confederation, a neighboring system known for its military strength and political influence. The Xyrillian ambassador, a tall and imposing figure, arrived at the palace with his entourage. Their purpose was to evaluate Varelia's leadership and determine whether to pursue alliances or exploit weaknesses. The ambassador's first words to Leora were cold and dismissive. "We have heard of your unusual alliance, Princess. A human? Surely this is a mistake. Your people deserve a leader who is unchallenged in every way." Leora's calm response surprised the ambassador. "Strength is not measured by appearances or conformity. It is measured by wisdom, courage, and the ability to protect one's people. My human bond has shown me perspectives and strategies that have preserved our kingdom. That is the proof of strength, not the judgment of others." The ambassador studied her carefully, clearly taken aback by her confidence and clarity. Ethan stood silently by her side, a quiet presence that reinforced her authority. Together they represented unity, vision, and a new way of leadership that was both unconventional and effective. Over the next several days, Leora and Ethan held discussions with the Xyrillians, presenting strategies, defense plans, and evidence of recent successes. The ambassador, initially skeptical, began to show signs of respect, impressed by the princess's intelligence and the human's insight. Inside the palace, the council observed these interactions with mixed emotions. Some nobles admitted privately that Leora's methods were effective. Others continued to resist, clinging to tradition and fearing change. One conservative noble, Lord Kieran, confronted Leora in the hall. "Princess, do you not fear that reliance on a human will weaken our traditions? Our people may begin to doubt the strength of the crown." Leora's expression remained calm and composed. "Lord Kieran, I do not fear change. I fear stagnation. Strength comes from understanding, adaptation, and trust, not rigid adherence to outdated rules. If we cannot embrace new methods, we risk losing everything to those who will act decisively." Kieran's wings quivered as he realized that arguments would not sway her. For the first time, he felt the weight of true leadership, calm, confident, and unshakable. As the weeks passed, more nobles joined her side. The princess carefully balanced the acceptance of new bonds with the need to maintain oversight and vigilance. Each bond strengthened the kingdom, not through fear or obligation, but through mutual respect and demonstrated loyalty. Ethan continued to learn and adapt alongside her, offering ideas, refining strategies, and proving that human perspective could complement Varelian knowledge. Their partnership became a model of cooperation, blending two very different worlds into a single force capable of innovation and defense. The palace halls began to echo with a new energy, a sense of possibility. Nobles who once sneered or whispered now approached with questions, suggestions, and even admiration. Citizens outside the palace began to speak openly about the princess who defied prejudice and the human who saw her true worth. One evening, as they stood atop the palace balcony, gazing at the sprawling city below, Leora spoke softly to Ethan. "Do you feel it? The kingdom is changing, not just in its actions but in its heart. People are beginning to believe in what they once refused to see." Ethan nodded, looking out over the glowing city. "It's remarkable. And it's only the beginning. We've proven what can be done when differences are embraced, when trust guides decisions instead of fear." Leora's voice was quiet but filled with determination. "There will be more challenges. There will always be those who resist. But we have shown them that courage, intelligence, and partnership can overcome doubt and fear. And together we will face whatever comes." The twin moons rose over Viralia, bathing the palace in soft silver light. For Leora, it was a reminder that change was possible, that perception could be transformed, and that leadership was not defined by strength alone, but by the courage to act with vision and integrity. For Ethan, it was proof that humans could make a difference in the galaxy, not by force or dominance, but through partnership, understanding, and unwavering trust in those who others had abandoned. And for both of them, it was a signal that the journey ahead, though filled with trials, threats, and resistance, was a path they would walk together, shaping the future of a kingdom that had once refused to see the value in its blind and disabled princess. The seeds of change had been planted, and the first sprouts were beginning to bloom. Viralia would never be the same again. The twin suns of Viralia had just risen when the alarm sounded again, louder and more urgent than ever before. Reports poured in from the outer systems. The rogue faction, once scattered and defeated, had returned with an even larger fleet. They had rebuilt their forces and now threatened the planet itself. Princess Leora felt a familiar tension in her chest, but this time it was mixed with determination. She turned to Ethan, who stood beside her, scanning the reports on a holographic display. "They've grown stronger," Ethan said, his voice calm but edged with concern. "They've learned from our previous engagement, and they will not hesitate to strike hard." Leora's hands rested lightly on her hover chair controls. "Then we must be faster, smarter, and more united. The kingdom is ready. Our people are ready. And together we are ready." The council gathered in the main chamber, their expressions a mixture of fear and hope. Generals who had doubted her before now listened intently. The nobles who had once refused to bond with her now offered guidance, pledging their resources and fleets to the defense of Viralia. Ethan leaned close to Leora. "Are you ready?" he asked. Leora's voice was steady, always. "Let us show them the strength of trust, courage, and understanding." The Virelian fleet mobilized quickly, their ships moving in precise formations guided by Leora's intuition and Ethan's human-inspired tactics. Citizens watched from cities and settlements across the planet as the armada moved into position, a symbol of unity and determination. The rogue fleet arrived without warning, dark shapes cutting through space like shadows. They were larger, more organized, and more aggressive than before. Explosions from their weapons lit up the void as they advanced toward Viralia. Leora's senses picked up subtle changes in the enemy formation. "They are divided," she said calmly. "Half of their fleet is overconfident, charging ahead. The other half is hesitant, unsure of the plan. That is where we strike first." Ethan nodded, maneuvering the strike teams into position. "We'll split our forces the same way. Target the aggressive ships first and isolate them. Then we can handle the rest." The battle began with a flurry of light and sound. Virelian ships darted among asteroid belts and debris, avoiding heavy fire while striking with precision. Leora guided the fleet with calm authority, predicting enemy movements and issuing orders that combined human improvisation with Virelian technology. Ethan led a smaller team on a daring flanking maneuver, weaving through the enemy ranks to strike at their command ships. Leora anticipated every counterattack, coordinating defenses and ensuring no ship was left exposed. Back in the council chamber, generals and nobles watched the battle unfold on holographic displays. For the first time, many of them saw a human and a blind disabled princess working together to direct an entire fleet with unmatched precision. They whispered among themselves, awe replacing doubt. One young noble whispered, "I never believed it possible, but they are extraordinary." Explosions lit up the outer system as Varelian tactics outmaneuvered the rogue forces. Leora directed a concentrated strike at the enemy's energy cores, disabling their weapons and forcing retreat. Ethan's human-inspired maneuvers prevented the rogue fleet from regrouping, turning their aggression into disarray. Hours passed like minutes in the intensity of battle. Leora's calm voice and precise commands guided every move, while Ethan's courage and quick thinking adapted to sudden changes. The rogue fleet, once confident in its superiority, began to falter, then break. Finally, the last of the enemy ships attempted to flee. Leora identified their escape trajectory and directed the fleet to intercept. The remaining vessels were captured or disabled, their threat eliminated. Cheers erupted across the council chamber and the palace as reports confirmed total victory. The people of Varelia celebrated in the streets, fireworks lighting the night sky as citizens honored their princess and her human ally. The council reconvened, now filled with respect and admiration rather than doubt. Generals and nobles approached Leora and Ethan, offering formal recognition and pledges of loyalty. One elder spoke with reverence, wings shimmering in the light. "Princess Leora, you have proven that leadership is not measured by appearances or tradition alone. You have shown courage, wisdom, and insight beyond expectation. And this human, your bond has proven invaluable. Together you have saved the kingdom." Leora's calm voice addressed the council and the citizens watching via hologram. "Strength is not in perfection, but in understanding, courage, and trust. We succeeded because we acted together, respecting each other's abilities, seeing potential where others saw weakness, and embracing differences. Let this be the lesson for all of Varelia. Unity and trust are the greatest power a kingdom can have." Ethan stepped forward, humbly bowing. "I am honored to serve the princess in this kingdom. Humans and Varelians can achieve incredible things when we work together, and this victory is proof of that." The nobles, once skeptical, now applauded openly. Citizens cheered, chanting Leora's name alongside Ethan's. Their bond, forged in trust and strengthened through action, had become a symbol of hope and progress for the entire planet. In the days following the battle, the Kingdom of Varelia began to embrace change. Reforms were introduced to make governance more inclusive, accessible, and innovative. Citizens were encouraged to share ideas and strategies, and new programs were created to ensure that disabilities or differences were not barriers to contribution. Ethan worked closely with Leora, continuing to teach human-inspired strategies while learning more about Varelian culture and intuition. Their partnership grew stronger, built on mutual respect, trust, and the knowledge that each complemented the other's strengths. Leora also focused on strengthening her relationships with the nobles who had initially doubted her. She guided them with patience, testing their loyalty and rewarding integrity. Those who resisted change gradually adapted or stepped aside, leaving the kingdom more united and prepared than ever before. One evening, after a long day of planning and council meetings, Leora and Ethan walked together through the palace gardens. The air was calm, and the twin moons cast silver light across the marble pathways. "You know," Ethan said, "when I first arrived, I never imagined I would bond with a blind and disabled princess, let alone help lead a kingdom." Leora smiled, a gentle glow in her expression. "And I never imagined I would find a human who could understand me, trust me, and act with courage when others would not. Together, we have proven that what others see as weaknesses can become strengths." Ethan nodded. "We've faced incredible challenges, but this feels like the start of something even greater." Leora's hover chair hummed softly as she turned toward him. "Indeed, there will always be threats, challenges, and skeptics. But we have learned that trust, courage, and understanding will guide us through anything, and we will face the future together." Across the kingdom, citizens celebrated in streets and plazas. Statues of heroes, both Varelian and human, were planned. Scholars recorded the story of the bond between Princess Leora and Ethan, ensuring that future generations would understand that true strength lies not in perfection, but in courage, trust, and the willingness to see beyond appearances. The twin suns rose again the following day, casting warm light over the city of Virelia. The palace gardens were filled with laughter, the hum of hover chairs, and the quiet confidence of a kingdom that had learned to value ability over appearance. Leora looked out over the city from her balcony, sensing the energy of her people. They trusted her now, not blindly, but because she had earned it through action, wisdom, and courage. Ethan stood beside her, a reminder that unity across differences could create extraordinary results. "Do you feel it?" Leora asked, her voice soft. "The kingdom is stronger, more united, and more hopeful than it has been in generations." Ethan nodded. "I feel it, and I know this is only the beginning. Together, we can face anything." As the twin moons rose over the horizon, casting silver light across the palace, Princess Leora and Ethan knew that their bond was more than friendship, partnership, or duty. It was a symbol of hope, courage, and the power of seeing potential where others saw only limitation. The kingdom of Virelia had faced a trial and emerged stronger. The rogue fleet had been defeated, the nobles had learned to trust and respect, and the citizens had witnessed a leadership that embraced differences, courage and intelligence. Princess Leora, blind and disabled, stood as a shining example of what was possible when fear and prejudice were set aside. Ethan, the human who had refused to see weakness, had proven that courage, trust, and collaboration could bridge worlds. Together, they had changed Virelia forever, and together, they would continue to lead, to innovate, and to inspire, showing the galaxy that true strength lies not in appearances, but in heart, mind, and the bonds we choose to honor.